Welcome to the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may have missed, with your hosts, AJ Kuti and Jason Gordon. Welcome back to the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses the things schools may not have prepared you for. We are AJ and Jason, your hosts for the next 30 minutes. Jason, how you doing?
Doing great, AJ. How about yourself?
Pretty good. You got anything fun planned for this upcoming week of classes?
Oh, yeah. We have a test this week, and
we do too.
This is the second test of the summer semester, and the first one did not go well per a survey of many of the students. I got some complaints about the format, asking me why it couldn't be multiple choice.
Oh, yeah,
instead
they
of
love those.
Short answer and fill in the blank, right? So
yeah.
Had to calmly explain that this is a better method of assessing your knowledge of the material. So anyway, you know how that is.
You know, it's interesting you say you've got your second test. I've got my second test also this week. And contrary to what a lot of students believe, the teachers don't get together and say, okay, we're going to put all of our tests in this 1 week. It just happens that way.
Always. And it's always about wherever spring break or fall break or
of
4th of July or whatever holiday is coming up falls. You have to fit it around that, and it just compacts the testing period.
Of course. Well, today we're going to be getting into Chapter 2 of the College 101 series, and we're going to be exploring the process of choosing college majors. Before we begin, I want to let listeners know that we are not going to be telling you what majors you should choose. What we want to do is we're just going to talk about how you can make the best decision and the most informed decision for you in that process. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, give you some tips that are going to guide you through the process, because it's something everybody faces almost uniformly across the board. Before we jump in, though, remind everybody, please, if you can, visit the Reschool'd.com, our website. Check out our social media handles at Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's Reschool'd Pod. And just a reminder, Reschool'd, that is not an ED, it is Reschool then a D. And then, of course, on your favorite podcast channels, Google, Apple, Spotify, like us there, follow us.
Yeah, we purposefully misspelled it just to kind of add some irony into it. Let's jump into our opening question, our quick question. And today's is not actually a question. We're actually going to do something a little different on today's episode. I want to introduce a new kind of opening question. And so we're going to do a grade this statement. I'm going to give you a statement, and I want you to use your professional teaching, experience and grade this statement on a scale of A to F, plus and minus. So A plus meaning you agree with it 100%. F minus means it's a joke and it means nothing. It's 0% true.
Okay.
The statement is, the choice of your major matters more than the choice of your college.
D minus.
D minus. Okay. Explain. Because I want feedback for my grade.
So I've heard that before, the idea that the choice of your major matters more than your school, but that is far from true. So everybody's going to have different things about what they want to do, right? Some career paths are very difficult to get into. Schools that lead to medical school, schools that lead to a job on Wall Street, schools that lead to a job in management consulting, right, or strategy consulting with a McKinsey or Bain or BCG, something like that. Those jobs are so incredibly difficult to get into out of school. There's a limited recruiting field for many schools. That is, schools will have a certain caliber of employer, I would say, that comes to campus. And you take a McKinsey consulting, for example. They go to the Ivy League schools, they go to your Stanfords, MITs, things like that. And it is very difficult to even get an interview with that firm, for example, if you don't go to a particular school. So depending on the career path you want to go down, the school matters as much as anything. And of the people I know who went to Ivy League or very prestigious schools, one I can give an example from Princeton University was an English major, and she got the interviews for Wall Street. She got the interviews for tech companies out in Silicon Valley. She got all those interviews, even though her major was related nothing to what she would be doing. There's an assumption there of competence and an assumption of the ability to learn if you performed at a certain level. And a lot of that's a signaling function for getting into the school, but at least it shows diligence, right?
Sure.
So that's my primary reason for giving that a bad grade. Now, I could dig a lot deeper into this about under certain scenarios where your major is going to matter so much for getting into a particular career field. So major within a school will matter more. But if you have the choice between levels of school, particularly since there are so many, there's a huge difference between a for-profit online part-time school and your most prestigious school on the other end in terms of the opportunities that it creates for you. Then so we can dig further into that, but that's my simplest explanation.
All right, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna give it a little bit higher grade, just for a little bit of a different reason too. I think I'm gonna go with a C minus. There is no question the choice of college is going to have effects on your career as you go through life. But also too, I think the major depending on how you plan on going through your college career to get to that profession, I think the major does matter in that for me, I was going to go through accounting and I also know I had to go to grad school. So I guess I would say my first choice of college or my first college, my undergrad college didn't matter as much to me knowing that I was going to go to grad school because I knew grad school was going to be the last school they were going to look at. So I guess I would say in the reason why I gave it that grade is because undergrad may not be as meaningful if you know you're going to go to grad school. If you don't know if you're going to go to grad school, then that undergrad would become more meaningful.
That makes sense. Absolutely. I mean, particularly, and like we say again, in certain career paths, you're going on to a master's degree, you're going on to a medical doctorate degree or
Sure.
a law degree or something like that, that where you come from in terms of the professional degree matters so much. I'm with you very much. I would improve the grade based on those criteria as well.
Cool. Well, that was. I love that question. I do like that structure of grading it and having to explain it. I think we're going to keep that one around for a little while. Let's get into the main topic, and that is again exploring and deciding on your majors. And this is a huge part for students, especially getting just starting out in their college career. We've said this on many podcasts before, many episodes before, that we both started off as a biology major. I went through biology for almost 2 years. How long did it take you to change?
I changed after the first year.
Okay.
So
So I did about halfway, you did about a quarter way through. Did you declare right at the start of your college career that you were going to go into biology, or did you begin undecided and then declare?
I declared up front.
Okay. Yeah, so did I. And so that leads me to the next question is it a must for students to declare immediately, or would it be better for them to wait a bit?
Once again, I'm going to qualify my answer on this.
Sure, please.
Okay. You need to understand the area that you're going to go into just because of prerequisite stuff. I came in and took honors biology, honors calculus, and the reason was I thought I was going to go pre-med route and I wanted to be prepared for the later courses. Those classes require a lot more effort. That is the primary focus, right, up front. But if I were going to be a liberal arts major, I ultimately ended up being a Spanish literature or culture
That was a
major.
big change from
That was a
biology to Spanish literature.
that was a big change. So if I had started off in that path, I would not have taken the same mathematics. I would not have taken the same science I didn't need that level of course, and I could have focused more on the courses that ultimately mattered more later. So coming in, it is important to have an idea of, do you want to go STEM? Do you want to go a specific technical route, such as nursing, medical school, that type of thing? Because you're going to have to prepare for that. But if you have an idea that isn't going to matter to me, there's no way I'm going to want to go down that route, that will help you choose your classes. So in that case, you've got some time. And usually it's about a year and a half. That's all the time you have, right? Before you'll get in a position where you start um, losing the opportunity to take those foundational classes. And then you get into the territory where it can start extending your college career because it takes more time to take all the classes you need.
Out of curiosity, maybe the listeners were thinking this when you said this, but what made you choose Spanish literature after biology? Like what was your goal with Spanish literature?
Okay, this will be one of those get to know me explanations because so I'm first generation, go to college. My brother had worked in a hospital some in high school, and when he went to college, said he was going to be a doctor. Because no one in our family had gone to college, I wanted to do something to be successful. What do you do to be successful? So my brother's going to study biology. I'm going to study biology. If I try hard enough, maybe I can go to medical school, that type of thing. But I quickly realized I didn't want to do that. It wasn't my primary interest. I was working extremely hard and I wasn't getting much joy out of it. So, that being said, at the end of my first summer, I'd never traveled anywhere. I'd never flown on a plane. I'd never done any of those things. I had the opportunity through the school to study abroad in San Jose, Costa Rica.
There's
Okay.
another topic for another podcast is studying
Abs-
abroad.
Absolutely. We're going to talk a lot about that because, it's something that travel mattered a lot to both of us. And
Sure.
it matters a lot to my students when I talk about it. And that's where it kind of came from with me there, getting that travel opportunity. But when I had that experience, I took a class when I got back with a very interesting professor, an exile from Cuba. He had been in Batista's regime, that type of thing. And he had just this amazing story. I became so enveloped in cultural studies, and I really enjoyed the language study aspect of it. The fact that the history, the culture, the literature was in another language. It really keeps you on your toes trying to learn another language while you're studying. So anyway, I became so captivated by it. I knew I had to figure out something I was going to do. And so I went and talked to the only lawyer I knew and asked him what he majored in college. And he said literature. And I said, really, you don't have to take any pre-law classes or anything like that? He said, no. He said, to get into law school, just have a good GPA. You're going to have to do well on the LSAT. Those are primary considerations. But your major in those terms doesn't really matter that much. Actually, literature majors that make you write and read a lot are kind of good preparation for what you'll see in law school. I said, all right, change of pace. I'm going to change from doctor to lawyer. And ultimately, I lived that one out. I ended up going to law school after undergraduate.
That's really you've got me pumped now. I want to go do Spanish literature class now. I remember foreign language classes, and I loved them. I still got a little bit from high school, but I don't have near what I should.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes you think in a different way, and it comes back to have the conversations when necessary. And when I've traveled, it's been very useful to have language skills. As you know, I'm part of a music publishing company, J and Coates, and I just
Plug.
laid down a demo, right? A plug, yeah, just laid down a demo where I do a Hispanic rap as the bridge to a specific song. So it's coming full circle. It's paying off.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about something that again we both have done. We've talked about declaring it versus waiting. And again, I'm on the same side with you and your the opinion on whether you should declare immediately or not. But both of us also decided to change our major, and I think changing a major is something that's very common among students because you think you know one thing, you think you want to go one direction, and then you realize some things come up, whether it be personal issues or academic issues, or you just realize you don't like it. So we both started majoring in one area. We ultimately changed. Was there a specific process you went through when you were deciding on the different major?
Absolutely. I mean, I guess first consideration was what did I enjoy? Okay, what was captivating me about learning at that moment? And certainly, like I just explained, the whole culture, literature in another language was very captivating. But you don't just take major courses, right? There are lots of other courses to take, and it kind of does change your path with regard to a number of other courses outside of your major concentration. So I considered all that. I considered whether I was going to lose any credit hours in changing. Luckily enough, I started early enough that I didn't run into that. For me personally, the biggest consideration was I was very lucky and I got a scholarship going into college. It was called a Presidential Honors Scholarship, and that meant I had to be in the honors program.
Nerd.
And yeah, right. I might have been the slowest person in there, but I was working hard, right? So, but So I had to follow some sort of curriculum that they had laid out, and part of that was a specific course sequence for these general education culture courses. I think it was Western Civilization, combination culture history course, and it caused me to have to rearrange things in there. And then ultimately, I got the opportunity to study abroad again in Santiago de Chile for a semester, and it threw off the schedule. There was no way I could take the required courses. So I made the decision not only to change my major, but to drop out of the honors program. I was still making all A's at the time, so I was still doing fine in the program. But because I knew that second study abroad experience was going to be so important for me, not only did I change majors, I dropped out of that kind of hand holding cradle that I was in. Coming into college. And so that was a big decision for me, very similar to changing your major.
Yeah, so I changed my major, like I said, after it was about a year and a half to 2. I remember I just finished up my second semester of OChem, and so, I mean, it wasn't like, "Oh, these things are hard and I don't wanna do this anymore." I'd gone through all the hard classes. I've taken all of my biology, uh, both intro to chemistry, both OChems, both, in our college they allowed us to do we get to choose physics. So did you want to do intro to physics, which is college algebra based, or did you want to do principles of physics, which was calculus based? Stupid me, I did the calculus based one. I thought, hey, it's going to be more challenging, so I'm going to give it a try. But I went through all that, and then after all of that, that's when I realized, the more and more I look into this field, which, again, being a doctor, even looking back now, I still think it would be a lot of fun, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't change what I have now because I do have that time. And I knew I've had a lot of, we had doctors friends. My wrestling coach in high school was a doctor, so I was able to talk to him, and being able to hear them out to say the amount of time needed or necessary for that field just wasn't my thing. And so that's why I decided to turn and go a different direction. And so my process at that moment, and I said this a couple episodes ago, I had my mentor tell me, what would you do if money was no option? I said work at a camp, which transitioned into teaching. So I started talking to other faculty members in the School of Business because, again, I had a bit of a cheat code because my dad was the dean of the School of Business. So I had friends in the School of Business already, and so I talked to them and said, what would be a good field in business to go to? What would be something that I could utilize in a way that's going to make my life better, be able to support a family, and still have time for that family? And I'll never forget one of our friends. He's a finance professor. He told me, dude, you need to get into accounting. You need to go teach accounting. They're one of the highest in demand positions on campus. They're looking for people because they cannot find them enough. And thought, okay, cool. I'm going to go do accounting. I got that myth. And if you're an accounting major right now, the biggest myth you'll ever tell yourself is, oh, I'm good at math, so I'm going to be good at accounting.
It's not math, it's a process, right?
Exactly. It has nothing to do with math. It's just basic college algebra. But I thought, okay, I'm good at math, so I'll be good at accounting. So I went into the accounting field, and I started to develop this like for it. But the like was from the perspective of teaching. It was never the perspective of doing it. And so I thought, okay, I could teach this. If I can't teach something that's easy, I have to teach something that's more challenging, because that challenge gives me that drive to help the students more. I want to see them succeed. So that's the kind of perspective I looked at it as a student. And I actually didn't get the passion for accounting until my last class in grad school. That was the kind of the teacher made that. I mean, it was just an amazing class. But
Hmm.
that was my process. I wanted to go through and find out what is high in demand, what is something that's going to give me the ability to support a family and still have the time necessary to do things with the family and to support whatever their extracurriculars are, or just go have fun. So that was my process.
So I think your approach is more useful for the other students here. I mean, I think it's good that they see on my side that I had no idea what I wanted to do, other than I said, okay, I need to change career paths. And I did do a little bit of research about what can get you there. But you had a better understanding. You took a more structured approach towards, this is what I want out of life. this is the type of job or career path that could give me that. You got some verification from other people about that this is a good path, right? You didn't just take, what you read on the internet or one person's word for it. You used a lot of people's influence, input, and things like that to make a decision about what is a good path forward. You researched, you knew what classes you need to take and things like that. So even if you lost credits, right? I imagine those OCHEMs didn't transfer or
Not
count
even a
towards
little bit.
right? Didn't count towards that major. You took a structured approach to understanding what you want out of college and how choosing a major was going to help you get there. And then if you were going to change from one major to the other, you made an informed decision. With me, it would have been a harder decision if I had gone further and taken the advanced biologies or the OChem classes on that track. I would have been highly reluctant, given that I was depending so much on the scholarship money to stay in school, that I would have been highly reluctant to change majors at that point. I probably would have seen it through just because I would have felt like I couldn't waste something that would otherwise potentially cost me money in a different semester.
Well, that's perfect because it leads us to our next question. And I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this one. When it comes to changing majors, because again, we both did that, is there one or two things the listeners should look into more so than others?
Okay, so yes, and I've pretty well got a checklist on this. To start with, you have to understand what you have left in not only your major, but overall credit hours, right? Your general education, your electives, things like that to get your degree. Then look at your major concentration and say, okay, this is how far I am along. Then sit down with an advisor. You can use the school system of whatever they have to compare your progress towards a degree, but sit down with an advisor and talk through with them what it will mean if you change away from your major. What classes generally will not count in a different major? Even if you don't understand what the other major is yet, at least have an understanding of that. Then, just like you did, start exploring yourself as to what you want to do. Having a poor understanding of a career path is one of the most common scenarios I see where students declare a major. They really don't understand at all what people do in that field or what it takes to be who they want to be in that field. So research the career path and then talk to people. Talk to people who are doing it. Talk to people who have done it. Talk to people who are teaching it. Talk to your professors. Talk to professionals and talk to other students who are somewhere along the path. Once you understand all of that, then you are armed to say, okay, I understand what this is. I understand what I want. I understand what it's going to take. Here's how I'm going to address the issue of this is the credit hours I will need. These are the credit hours I have. This is how long it's going to take me to complete all these. What does that mean for if you have financial aid or if you have scholarships or you're paying out of pocket? What does that mean for you financially? What does that mean for you time-wise? Then you can make the right decision. So if you go down that checklist and do those things, that is the most prepared you can possibly be.
I would agree with you to a certain point. I'm actually going to, my answer would be take off, I think, one or two checkpoints on that list. And that's actually what you said in the first. To me, I know a lot of people look at their degree or their college career and they see, okay, I have already taken 2 years worth of credit hours, so maybe 60 hours. If I change majors, I'm going to lose some of those. So for me, I lost, sadly enough, nomenclatures in chemistry was not part of accounting. So it didn't help me at all. But I lost a lot of credit hours. But to me, the first checkpoint on that list would be understand what you're passionate about. And I think I said this on a previous podcast or a previous episode. But understand what you're passionate about because the passion is what's going to drive you through your career. If you go through something and you realize I'm not passionate for this, but because I have already taken these hours, I don't want to lose those hours, then you're going to feel stuck. And I think it goes back to what you were saying too with the contentment. If you're not happy with it, if you're not content with it, it's going to be harder for you to get up every morning, do this job every day. If you have to sacrifice some hours in order to find that position or to do that thing that you're passionate about, I was okay with that. And I can give you an example near and dear to me. My wife is a great example of this because she never learned what she was passionate about. And she struggles with it today. My wife is an accountant. She is a great, like I said before, she's super smart. She's super intelligent. She's very good at what she does, but she's just not happy with what she does. And so she went into a field. She went pre-pharmacy first and then changed over to accounting. And she did that because, again, the high in demand nature of the field, she figured she'd be able to get a job. And she did. It's just not a job that really she can get behind. She's very passionate about. And so that makes her wonder every day, is there something else I could have done? And so I would definitely suggest to listeners, if you're struggling with, I don't know if I really want to do this, but I already have 60 credit hours and I'm afraid I'm going to lose them. I wouldn't put that too high, at least myself personally. I wouldn't put that too high because I think you will be happier in the long run doing what you're passionate for and giving up some of those hours rather than just continuing on with what you have just so you don't lose that.
You've convinced me, AJ. I'm with you on that one too. Passion, understanding, long-term contentment, because everything now is, like I say, it's very short term. College lasts 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 years. If
7,
you go
8.
for, you're going for a master's, you're going for a doctorate, yeah, it can last a lot longer.
I was talking about bachelor's.
Oh, yeah. Reminds me of that episode in Tommy Boy.
Uh-huh.
Right? Lots of people go to school for 7 years. So, but that great point, AJ. Personal contentment in the long run. One thing I will note, though, it takes a lot early on when you haven't had a lot of professional experience in different fields to really understand what motivates you, those internal needs, until you've had a job that doesn't have what you're looking for. Right? It's hard to see what you're looking for. But as soon as you have that job that gives you, like for me, I'm a creative output type of person. I'm a high impact type of person. And a job that gives me that is going to be far more motivating than a job that earns higher compensation or is competitive or allows you to keep score or comes with big titles.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, that was a great show. I enjoyed it. I hope the listeners got something out of it as well. On next week's episode, we will be talking about the different types of course structures you may have to choose from your classes. So by that, I mean face-to-face, hybrid, online, and the likes. As you would imagine, they all have their own advantages and disadvantages. So we're going to be discussing both sides. As always, if you wouldn't mind, drop us a line on our website, Twitter, or Instagram if you have any questions. Also, we haven't said this before, but I love this too. If anything that we've discussed on the show has helped you out or you've had something good happen to you in school, let us know. Like if you passed an exam that you've been studying for or you got an A in a heart class, please let us know. We absolutely love to hear success stories from our listeners too. So until next time, Jason, you got anything to say?
No, guys, just send us those questions and we're going to address them for you.
Awesome. Well, y'all have a good one. Goodbye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Reschool'd podcast. Be sure to head over to reschool'd.com for news and other information on things we're getting into.